Good morning, YouTube. Warbles on a lot here. Sunday, 12th of June. Just getting ready for the Outsiders and First Dog on the Moon.
Time now for Outsiders. I'm Barry Cassidy, and you're not. And joining us in the luxurious Canberra studios of the ABC this week, we have Catherine Murphy, Deputy Political Editor at Guardian Australia. Is that still right, Catherine?
Yes, that is still absolutely 100% correct until the middle of July,
When you become
when I become Political Editor of Guardian Australia.
Deputy no longer.
Deputy no longer.
Congratulations to her. Chris Wallace joins us too, historian, journalist, ANU academic, and Bevan Shields, Federal Politics Editor for Fairfax Media. Hooray all.
Good morning.
Hurrah.
They're all lined in front of me here. This is a unique experience of this program. Just to have four people in the one room. So
It's very nice to be all together. We were just commenting.
can we start in America? There's something, rather interesting has happened. This is overnight our time. This from Mitt Romney.
Presidents have an impact on the nature of our nation. And trickle-down racism, trickle-down bigotry, trickle-down misogyny, all these things are extraordinarily dangerous to the heart and character of America. And so I'm not looking for Mr. Trump to change a policy that more aligns with my own. This is not a matter of just policy. It's more a matter of character and integrity.
Do you think he's a racist?
Oh, I think his comments time and again appeal to the racist tendency that exists in some people, and I think that's very dangerous.
Chris, that's Mitt Romney speaking there with Wolf Blitzer on CNN.
I'm proud of Mitt Romney. I cannot believe it has taken a senior Republican so long to come out and unequivocally describe what Donald Trump is. It's to the deep shame of the Republican Party that its senior figures, I'd exclude the Bushes from that because they were quite clear they would not support Trump. But apart from the Bushes and now Mitt Romney, every senior Republican has cravenly fallen into line behind this dangerous demagogue. And thank God Mitt Romney has spoken the truth. What are the rest of them going to do now?
Well, we've seen that this past week with Paul Ryan, for instance, just in the week past, the endorsements are beginning to flow. And the rhetoric originally, Catherine, was that this could split the Republican Party, but to the contrary, as Chris points out, everybody's been falling into line.
Yeah, it's sort of, the Republican Party faces a big choice. Can it really allow this can it really select this candidate?
It has. It's done.
No, I know, but can it as a collective, can it stand behind this candidate? That is an extraordinary decision for this party to make. And we've seen various people along the way. I absolutely accept Chris's point that there's been a whole lot of craven stuff going on, Chris Christie being the most craven and the first most craven.
Almost sadly so.
Well, just unbelievably so.
But even shocks like John McCain slinking in quietly behind him recently. I mean, that was a real shock.
But Bevan, we're heading to the conventions now, and Trump has the numbers. He's the presumptive nominee. There's no process still which could tip him out. I mean, the party's stuck with this.
Well, it seems that way. I mean, Romney, I'm sure he's not going to have a crack. I think he's made that pretty clear. But will it make a difference? This is exactly what Trump likes, isn't it? This is what he feeds off, that he's completely anti-establishment.
Yeah,
and Romney typifies establishment.
He just doesn't care. I mean, that's the thing with Trump too that makes it impossible to sort of second guess. He says things that you would imagine any other person in politics to be the end of them.
Well, that's all true, and he craves conflict, and he invites conflict. Conflict's his whole methodology. But that said, I hate to be prudish about this, but this is a moral decision for the Republican Party. It's not some sort of abstract, close our eyes, hold our nose, let's see if we can get through.
Does the Republicans walk away from their nominee?
I think that the role of journalists in this has not been very distinguished either. I was really upset about 10 days ago, and the New York Times lead story went like this at the top. It said, senior Republicans are getting extremely worried about Donald Trump's, and I'm thinking it's going to go on and say, the damage is going to do to the Republican Party. But no, it's just how it's going to turn out in the election in November. And I'm thinking this is a fight for the soul of the Republican Party, one of the two great parties of the American polity? Are they just going to let it go down the racist, misogynist demagoguery toilet in this election? Or are they going to fight for their own party?
Well, exactly.
It's been hijacked.
And there is a school of thought about burning down the house to save the house.
Mhm.
It's sort of like, the Republican Party has been drifting in this unelectable direction for a considerable period of time. And there is a school of thought that if the party does go to war in this instance, that there will be a reckoning here that will enable the Republican Party to reposition in a way that it might actually secure the presidency.
That thing of media role is really interesting. There was an interesting piece in Huffington Post last week saying this was the Edward Murrow moment when Murrow, of course, called out McCarthy famously, and there was an editor's note on this Huffington Post piece, as you see, a little tag at the end that said this: editor's note. Donald Trump regularly incites political violence and is a serial liar, rampant xenophobe, racist, misogynist, and a birther who has repeatedly pledged to ban all Muslims, 1.6 billion members of an entire religion, from entering the US. Just, okay, what do you really think?
There was an interesting moment this week where BuzzFeed made quite an issue of deciding to not accept Donald Trump advertising, which I, talking about the role of the media. I thought that was an interesting moment. Whether or not that goes wider, I'm not sure.
Slagged off by local representatives of News Corp for being political.
And there are serious, like David Frum in The Atlantic, for example, who's a Republican, has been writing extraordinary stuff.
On the other side of the aisle, Bernie Sanders almost getting in line behind Hillary Clinton.
I look forward to meeting with her in the near future to see how we can work together to defeat Donald Trump and to create a government which represents all of us and not just the 1%.
None of which Bevan takes away from, the big moment of the week, I think, the Clinton for the Democrats, again, the presumptive nominee.
It was. I had a moment this week where I thought, can we just have one election at a time? I think we need a rule, one big election at a time, because, we're sitting at work watching.
It is distracting.
We're watching Hillary.
Brexit next week. So.
It was a major moment, but, we're sort of all distracted here as well. Look, with that interesting comments from Sanders, how is he going to get out of this thing? He's not exactly a team player. And what's going to happen with...
He's not even a Democrat.
What's going to happen with his supporters?
Do you think he might possibly be thinking that he can run independent? Is he?
Look, I think Bernie is a sad old man addicted to the limelight, and he's going to be dragged off stage kicking and screaming, hopefully. If he doesn't depart soon, he's going to go down as the biggest wrecker of all time.
Did you see there was a great...
Go away, Bernie. It's over. You're not a candidate. Just
all of which Catherine sort of, steals from that great moment of Hillary Clinton, to hear a woman being put up by the Democrats as a presidential candidate.
I'm sorry. I know it was a great moment. I understand it was a great moment.
And a grandmother,
it was a great moment. But I felt only dread. I did. I felt only dread.
Why?
Because there we are. I saw Hillary Clinton, a progressive woman, an unconventional woman, standing up thinking, oh, here's progress. And then I thought, gosh, I've seen this before. I know what happens next.
And what happens next, in this country we saw with Gillard was of a certain tone. I think we can only begin to imagine the campaign that Trump is going to run against Hillary Clinton.
I'm sorry. Obviously, it's great, excuse me, that a major American political party has selected the first woman in its history to be the president of the United States. Obviously, I'm not being churlish about that. Obviously, that is a significant milestone. But just as we saw with the election of President Obama unleash this latent racism in American society, and if we sort of analyse that term, God, it's just you just shake your head.
Can't worry about that.
Well, no, sure, but I'm just talking about talking about a personal reaction. A personal reaction.
I have a personal corrective to that, and that is to think back on the Gillard years and how Gillard's arguably greatest achievement was that she took that incredible onslaught and did not buckle, did not crumble, got through it. And you know what? Hillary's going to do the same thing.
We will see as this unfolds. Catherine Murphy, Chris Wallace and Bevan Shields are your outsiders this morning on Sunday Extra. Let's get domestique, shall we? Because as you so rightly point out, Bevan, we have our own campaign.
Yeah, we do.
And you think the campaign's long? Well, that's nothing. We're talking now 10-year economic plans. Here's Chris Bowen.
Both sides of
Oh,
politics
no, it's not.
will be in deficit over the 4 years of the forward estimates. It is true the Labor will not have the same degree of fiscal contraction as the Liberals over this period.
I like the emotion, Catherine, that Bill Shorten brings to that.
And fiscal contraction, you sort of almost wince, really, don't you?
But look, courageous, however, on the part of the Labor Party.
Sure. No, this was, and a couple of things about our own campaign. One, I refuse to be bored by it. I absolutely refuse to be bored by it. I think it's the most interesting campaign we've seen here since 2004.
Yeah, I'd agree with that totally.
I think it's a really interesting campaign, and it's just the length of it that gives it this sort of strange enervating quality where it sort of feels like a war of attrition. I think at the ideas level, it is fundamentally important, this campaign. In terms of Shorten's positioning this week, well, this week just gone is a really critical week for Labor. Really critical. Basically, they had to execute a pivot, I suppose, on away from its sort of social capital agenda to the economic agenda and to the budget agenda. And basically it had to frame a situation where because of the social capital agenda, it's going to look less good than the government over the forward estimates. But their argument that was, if you look over the medium term, then our structural saves are better than theirs. And that's a hell of a pivot to try and execute in the course of a week. So I think
it's kind of true to form for Labor, who've been courageous all along in policy. I mean, negative gearing pre-campaign was an instance of similar courage, of saying, look, actually, we're going to be truthful with you here, and this is our structural position.
Well, and super, you could argue that Labor dragged the coalition to the table on super. But just on Catherine's point, I wonder whether or not Labor's clever enough to sell that distinction to the average voter. Trust us, we're going to have bigger deficits for 4 years, but long term, medium term, some of our structural reforms start to kick in. I don't think so. I think most people will be looking at the deficit, argument over 4 years. The deficit is an issue that all our readers are telling us, all social data is telling us, is an issue that people really care about, and neither side at the moment is talking about it. This was the week that we started to talk about it, and what do we hear? We hear Labor's going to have bigger deficits.
And Chris, giving the government, whose debt and deficit position is not good, the cover here of saying will be worse.
I think this is why it is such an interesting campaign. I think in the next week you're going to see Labor really want to engage in a debate on territory that is not its own and prosecute the argument that this is not the time for fiscal contraction. This is one of the differences between Labor and the coalition. The coalition wants to, crunch things down. Labor doesn't think this is the time to have extremely contractionary budgets. They'll say ours is only mildly more expansionary, and that will be accurate because I think, the difference is so minute in terms of the overall budget, it doesn't matter. But Labor is being consistent. It's been arguing all along through this term of opposition that the economy is softening in this post-mining boom environment. It is not the time to do the double down on the belt tightening. It's the time to be prudent, but, encouraging. And you know what, Philip, Jonathan,
Philip's listening. Good morning, Philip, and I'm glad to bring you into the conversation.
Yeah, we had Bill Shorten come in for Chris Bowen before, so it's all good.
Yeah, Philip Green was a terribly nice guy.
We're firing.
Like you, Jonathan. They'll either pull off the argument or they won't. And if they do pull it off, well, that would be an opposition that may be worthy of government.
Just picking up on Bevan's point, which is quite correct, are they clever enough to sell it? It's not so much are they clever enough to sell it, it's will they stand and sell it? Will they actually do the work rather than just dropping the baby and then moving on?
I think you can get $10 on them doing that this week. I think you will find Labor far from running away from the economic argument, doubling down on it because they know they have to win that argument.
They have no choice, surely, from this position.
No, that's right.
They mark their cards.
Yeah.
The other thing is there's an interesting disparity between what's going on between the key exponents of each side. I mean, Scott Morrison has been in the cupboard, locked up for the entire campaign, right?
Completely.
But Peter Credlin in the Newslander papers today made a fascinating point about what's happening with Turnbull. Turnbull is doing, you two would know this on the trail, Turnbull is making so few appearances now, a tiny number of appearances, they tend to be in front of very small, friendly Liberal Party audiences. He's whipped in, there's a grab, he's whipped out. So basically, you've got the government with no economic spokesman out there and the Prime Minister barely out there. I mean, this is a big opportunity for Shorten and Bowen if they really occupy the stage now.
And showing a bit of guts in that direction, and we're running out of time here.
Okay, so we're running out of time. We're on the upload limit now.